So your character's a bit of a mystery. Why don't you tell us all of his secrets?
Okay.
Just to start with the easy one.
Can do that,
All
but
right.
I can tell you some things. Maybe I can hint some.
Give us some
things.
hints.
Well, as we see from the episode 1, he has this diary that we believe that it is Lucy's handwriting. And on the end of episode 1, we see that he's looking at the moon landing, and which was actually just when they asked me, Goran, find something interesting in that book, that we can record. I'm like, I just have something. So I put the moon landing intentionally, and I said to the writers, we need to now make a story about this, which we're making right now, by the way. So it's fun to be on a show that it's kind of like in development, so you can kind of influence it a little bit, nudge it this direction or that direction. But about Flynn, he honestly does believe that what he does is for the greater good. Eric Kripke famously said that he hates the shows that tease audience indefinitely, so we're going to be getting answers fairly quickly. And by episode 7, you're going to find out why is he doing it and who is he fighting and what happened to his family. He's going to have a scene with Wyatt when he does that. And now, are you going to believe Flynn, or are you going to be believing Wyatt, who probably thinks it's psychological warfare, what Flynn does, and basically trying to pull him on his side? And that's going to be part of the mystery. But it's going to be, hopefully, we think that after you finish watching the show and your family members are going to be disagreeing, or, he's going to be, I believe Wyatt. No, I believe Flynn. So that's kind of what we're aiming for. It's going to be a lot of these things that some people are going to actually believe what Flynn says. Some people are going to think that he's lying. Right. And it's going to also be a lot about these things. Would you do this, or would you save this person, or would you do what Lucy did, or would you do what Flynn did? And it's going to be quite interesting with the stories to come.
Cool.
So do you see him as a villain?
Never play a bad guy if you see him as a villain. But what we like to call him is the antagonist. He steals the time machine, and that kind of like starts this avalanche of things to come. And like I said, we're gonna see him do things that he honestly believes are for the greater good. And we're gonna learn that his family is dead. They think he did it. They even mentioned that in the pilot. Now, if he did it or not, we're gonna find that out through the future episodes. And more we find about him, it's gonna be more of like, really? So that's what makes it interesting for me to play it. If it's just a simple bad guy who's kind of like, oh, I want to destroy today's reality because I want to make it like my reality, it's kind of boring. But if he really believes that he's doing things for greater good and he's not crazy and he's not a maniac, there's some gravitas in what he does.
You've played so many different kinds of roles in your career. Is this, obviously what attracted you to the character seems to be the complexity of it. Is it something that you were looking to do? Were you looking for something specific when this came along, or was it just something that attracted you to it because it was a great script and great people?
No, this pilot season I was openly looking for something to do, and there was actually, this is the first time in my career that all these things came together. Mm-hmm. Like a couple of times in the past, it would be great projects. ER, I didn't even want to talk about it. That was so amazing that, it was like a beautiful run, great people, interesting storylines. As an actor, you can just wish for them. But this thing now is, I was, little known fact, if I didn't end up being an actor, I would end up being a professor of history and geography back in my hometown. I really loved history all my life. I loved science fiction. It started with the fairy tales when I was a kid, and kind of graduated into science fiction after that, which was like a logical step after fairy tales. So this project's come along, and together with Sean Ryan and Eric Kripke creating together something, it's kind of like two worlds colliding. It's like Democrat, Republican creating a government together. And I'm like, but you know what I'm saying? I really want to see this show, and I now have an opportunity to be a part of the show, because as a sci-fi fan, I know you guys like science fiction, probably, if you're here.
I think we tend to.
You know how difficult it is to find a really good sci-fi project? So now you answer me one question. What's Indiana Jones? Which genre? You say adventure, okay, but wait a second. What about the Ark of Covenant opening and the ghosts are coming out? That's not adventure anymore. You jump into sci-fi territory here. So this is what we're doing. It's a strong drama adventure show. It has funny moments. The closest to explain would be something like Indiana Jones. But it's, again, I think it's going to be original in the concept. about answering these things, like exactly, would you do that? Would you save Abraham Lincoln from being assassinated? I mean, first answer is immediately, oh my God, yes, of course. I mean, it's going to be, the United States is going to be better for so many reasons, but then what if 100 years from now something happens down the line that our society becomes so much more peaceful? Let's say we don't want to invest in Manhattan Project, and Germans developed atomic bomb before us, and the Second World War is suddenly we're jumping into like Amazon, what is it, The Man in the High Castle. I mean, it's like, don't change anything. So it's going to be a lot of these questions that are going to be tricky to answer, and some audience members are going to be, I would love to do this, and no, are you crazy? If you do that, this is going to happen. So it can be as many realities as people watching the show. That's what's going to make it interesting.
Cool. I think that's something that's great about it, is that there are so many different ways fans can interpret it and, start these conversations and really get fans talking.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're going to be in this episode. I mean, when I read the script first, the first question I was asking myself, except shit, I have to shoot Abraham Lincoln. How am I going to explain that to my kid? But the real question is, would you stop it? I mean, it's Lucy's question through this episode. It's like, she's able to stop it, and what she says in the end is like, it's one thing to see history as this kind of abstract thing that we learn from the books, and now imagine yourself actually being in that theater in the same booth as Abraham Lincoln. I mean, just imagine that situation. I mean, it's kind of like freaky. I just did the episode of the Alamo, and I'm walking into a tent that General Santa Anna is in, and this great actor, speaking Spanish with Mexican accent, and we're doing a first shot, and I'm walking in, and this costume, these soldiers, this tent, and the guy. I mean, it looks completely realistic. And camera was kind of hidden; you couldn't see the camera or other crew members. And I'm walking in, and I'm thinking, I started laughing. We had to cut because I'm thinking, what if for real this happened? I mean, you're like, I got goosebumps, So imagine every time if you do it like that, every episode we have, that's what I do. Every time I'm in a room with somebody known from the history or not even, but the costumes, I'm thinking, what if I'm actually really here? I mean, and it gives me so much energy and so much willingness to be a part of the show. I hope audience is going to feel that too.
And then you mentioned always loving history. So as you have been filming these episodes, has there been anything that you learned that you hadn't been aware of before that you really found as interesting?
Yeah. There's a lot of things. For example, like in Lincoln's assassination. I mean, we all know about Lincoln being assassinated, but I didn't know about the wider conspiracy that they were actually trying to shoot Vice President General Grant. I didn't know that, and I was kind of like, really, this really happened? I was like, I don't trust these guys. Let me, and so we're gonna go for these events that there are. Every episode we're gonna pull out something that actually is history, but it's just not known, or there are some facts that have been kind of hushed in the history. The winner writes the history, so some things are actually known, but kind of we don't want to talk about it. There are some mysteries in the history that they happened and science can't explain them, so we just don't talk about them. And people who bring them up, they're loonies, who think like, aliens built the pyramids and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think the aliens built them, but, it's kind of mysterious how they happened, or, we can just, it would be nice to actually go back and check it out, see them. There's so many, it's the beauty of the show that it's unlimited in resources,
Is there a historical character you like?
I mean, when I was a kid, I used to I put myself to sleep. I would go back and, I would kind of think of these stories and stuff. Sometimes I would think going back to the past with my music knowledge and, come to David Bowie and say hey, I have a great idea for the song, and say, it's called Let's Dance, really? It sounds good, I don't know why, but I always had these I would go to Freddie Mercury and I tell him, look, there's a great song, it's called Bohemian Rhapsody, I just came up with it, listen to this. And then I was like, dude, you're such a bad singer, he probably wouldn't even recognize the song. But it was always in my head, wouldn't that be cool? And then you kind of keep royalties for yourself because you invented it, So I don't know. It's so many great stories with the history. I mean, my favorite is if you go far back in time. You remember Yankee on King Arthur's court. He comes back and he's able to build modern guns and weapons, and he knows when the solar eclipse is going to happen. We have so much knowledge versus people 500 years ago just about solar system, about the Earth is round or not. I mean, they just didn't know about that. So it's kind of like you feel almost like a superhero further back in the past you go, because these people really don't understand so many things. No running water, no sewer, no knowledge of bacteria, viruses. I mean, it's just such a huge cake to get into. You don't know, are you going to just do this, or are you going to go in the middle, or are you going to get it from this side? It's a really cool place to be.
You're certainly excited about a lot of this stuff.
Or maybe just the coffee, I don't know.
Are there any mental challenges at all with coming week in, week out in different time periods and preparing yourself to...
Well, the beauty of it, in a way that it's not challenging, is, for example, you're going to see my watch in the Alamo episode, so audience is going to be, mistake, no. I do that. My character doesn't care so much about, changing a history a little bit, because he changes, he carries his 6 hour with 16 bullets, and that's in this Lincoln episode when he comes to the booth and say, use this, dude, and he's like, no, fuck, I have to do it on my own. So, I always carry this 21st century persona with me. So it's about pretending, yes, we're going to put a costume on, which is going to be sometimes a little bit mismatched, because Sean Ryan said one day, guys, we were talking about how real they have to be when they go to the past. And he said, Flynn doesn't have a costume designer, for Christ's sakes. He throws on, okay, it's about a couple of decades too old or too new, but it doesn't matter, as long as he kind of fits in. Sometimes we don't wear hats. And in that period, not wearing a hat would be almost like walking, bare-chested through like society. You can't do that. So it's going to be these things that in the beginning of the show, it's going to look almost like mistakes, but they're not. They're going to be very intentional things to do. I love that when, you're in a period and suddenly 1750 French-Indian War, you look like a magician there. So challenge is not in that respect. The challenge for me is that sometimes they give me things to do that me, Goran, is completely against, and it's so difficult for me to do them. I never had that before in my acting career, playing a bad guy or so where this is like, I have to destroy some things that are in my core and my being. I'm against destruction of those things, and I'm going to have to do that. That's like pulling a trigger on Lincoln is like, even if it's a TV show, but I mean, we portray it as a serious event and as a real. It's you need to talk to your son next morning and explain to him why you did that. So that's the most challenging thing. Yeah.
So the time machines in Timeless are really cool, but there are a lot of iconic time machines throughout pop culture. Do you have a favorite one?
Come on. What's your favorite? Okay, I bet DeLorean. It's the king of time machines, But it'll be nice to see DeLorean in this show, But I really have to say the old one, the prototype that they're using, I was really happy with the design when they came. It looks kind of very, very kind of DeLorean. It looks like somebody did it in like his backyard or something. It looks like very put together. Like the time machine Flynn is using, it's kind of very high tech. It looks so. I kind of like that clash between these two things, And it's but DeLorean.
Awesome.
Quick answer. Yeah.
Great.
Especially from the third movie, and he's putting in like.
That one doesn't get enough love, I don't think.
Oh, are you crazy? What do you mean?
People like the one from number 2.
You mean, yeah, well, it's person brand. You're talking about a locomotive or?
No, I mean, the white wall tires and the...
I
like that look.
Yeah.
But, it's hard to beat the original
The fuel,
design.
no, I'm talking about the fuel.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
That drops in bananas and trash.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing? This is a new fuel. It's like, awesome.